or more, 4% chance of losing their job to automation. The White House also says that's not necessarily all bad. Through automation could create more and different jobs, but that the robot is coming. With that being said, he's our man. He is Larry Stenenbach from R&D from First Rule Film and Broadcast. Good morning, Larry.
Hey, good morning, guys. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Fine. You were shaking your head on that one.
Oh, yeah, totally. And that's what we're going to talk about today is robots, which is like when you say that, it always sounds so science fiction-y and so far out there. But
Right.
as the government is warning, this is a real possibility that's coming faster than most people that aren't real big geeks like myself and follow it day to day know about. So, this last month and the last couple months, there's been a lot of robots in the news, everything from Fukushima nuclear plant, the Japanese creating own robots to go down and deal with that.
Right.
But here recently, there have been two major robotic stories that I think we should talk about that are really interesting.
All right, go ahead.
So the first one, and I'll sit here and I'll play it here, and I'm sure you guys can see it on the stream as well. Nissan, the car company, to promote their self-driving cars, has created self-driving chairs. Now that sounds ridiculous, but if you go to Google and you search for Nissan chairs or Nissan self-driving chairs, essentially they put the same technology that allows their cars to auto park into chair systems that then you can use in your office, like office chairs. And so then at the end of the day, when you got a conference room or a large classroom, let's say, full of students, and they've all left and the chairs are all a mess, you clap your hands and all of them instantly return to their desks properly and the whole room looks
This should
great.
be called the Jimmy Holder component.
Oh, I was thinking the same thing. He never pulls in his chair.
Well, exactly. So it's a neat application of this sort of robotic technology to something you might not think about it, which is chairs.
And for those obsessive compulsive people like me, seeing a chair out of place, that makes perfect sense.
It's a little bit silly, but at the same time, you could see once this costs of this come down, which right now Nissan's not planning to sell this.
Right.
This is clearly a, hey, look at what we did and look at how cool our cars are that do the same thing. You're going to see it in self-driving cars first.
Yeah.
But still, the concept's so neat and got such a good response that I'm imagining you'll probably see this retail not too long. Essentially, it has cameras that you put up in the corners of a room. It scans the room, and you say, this is how the chair should be. And then when people left, if it's all a mess, they clap, and then the whole room auto-reorganizes
It's like the clapper.
itself.
It is like the clapper. Can you sit in the chair and have it park the chair
Yes,
for
they
you?
actually showed it at one point in time. One of the ladies got in the chair, clapped, and it parked with her
Okay,
in there.
what
But-
happens if everyone in the room gets a bonus of $10,000 and they all clap? They're like, woo, yeah!
I think it's
What
looking
does
for
it
a
just
couple-
start going crazy? All the chairs
it's
start going
using
crazy?
sensors in the room basically to try to figure out if there are people in the room. So I think the person that was in the chair was sitting really still. So
I heard a comedian once say, hey, I put my TV on the clapper, and then the guy hit a home run. And my lights were going on and off.
So that's a fun little story. But let's get to the one that this week made me go wow.
All right.
I bring you all these cool
This
new
is the wow factor.
I bring you all these cool new technologies.
Yes.
But this one is the one that made me shocked.
All right.
So there's this company called Boston Dynamics. They were a spinoff from MIT in 1992.
All right.
And they've been one of the forefront leaders in robotics in the United States and in the world. And over the last couple years, we've watched their videos that they put out of first something called Big Dog. People might have seen over the last 5 or 6 years. It looked like a big dog, four-legged robot that was
Right.
meant to carry things for the military. DARPA and the U.S. military contracted with them. And it was actually used overseas recently. Their version looks like a big dog, and it carries couple 100 pounds of gear and can walk on any surface. It looks like an AT-AT from Star Wars almost. But their new version of what's called the Atlas robot, they've had a couple of these in the past, but they've always been tethered or they've always been in like a lab situation. So what this looks like and what we're seeing on screen, it looks like C-3PO. It's a bipedal robot, like walking just like a human, analog to a human. It's 5'9" feet tall, and it only weighs 180 pounds, which is hugely reduced from before. And it's completely battery powered. And we're watching it on screen, picking up 10-pound boxes, placing them on shelves, walking through terrain where it's snow-covered ground through the middle of the forest. So it can't see the ground. It has to feel the ground to be able to walk and not fall over.
He slipped a bit, but he stayed upright.
Absolutely. And so this is really, really impressive. It's gotten to the point now where this is only a couple generations away from true Android-like robots. And what's interesting is that this company, which was, again, spun off from MIT in 92, is actually owned now by Google. So, and what they're showing on screen right now is they're trying to mess the robot up.
Yes.
So they're pushing the robot away, pushing
Move
the
the
thing
box
that
away.
he's trying to grab away. And again, remember, Google owns this company now. They still do work for DARPA, and they still do work for the
Okay,
US
what is
military.
DARPA?
DARPA is the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. It is where the internet came from
Right.
in the 60s.
Right.
It is where all of the high-tech sci-fi tech that's 10 years ahead of anything we have.
That's freaky.
It is.
it's
I would be
close.
kind of scared when if I would see something like this. But what do they want to use it for?
Well,
I mean,
there
in the
are
future.
military applications, obviously, which is the scary part with a whole bunch of Terminators
Well, you
running
also
around.
clean your toilet.
But they could do that. They could do all of the manual labor, the government's work,
Right.
And there's going to be a lot of people that
They
bring
think
that
they
up
could-
as a negative.
Right.
But you got to realize that every time a new technology comes along, it's the same story. It was the same thing when horse drive, when
Right.
cars came along.
That's
you know,
true.
It's
Laser guided missiles. Like, what do you need
Yeah.
that GPS for?
and
That's stupid.
then you look at stories that said, okay, 100 years ago, right now, the quality of life Americans have, even the poorest Americans, is better than Rockefeller was back 100 years ago. So, like, quality of life improves with technology.
So I heard something really interesting, and while we have you here, I got just a second.
Yeah.
I heard somebody say that after the Cold War ended, the military and the government said, we no longer need this internet thing to be in the government. We don't need to securely send messages back and forth to Europe and wherever else because the Cold War is over with, so they demilitarized the quote-unquote the internet.
Yeah. So DARPA in I think it was the 60s, basically it's created what's called DARPANET.
Right.
And DARPANET was the first iteration of the internet. They needed a secure way to send digital messages because digital was kind of starting to come about at
Right.
that time and it was thought about all across the world. So yeah, initially it was a military technology.
And so once the Cold War ended and there was none of this Soviet Union, American, Cold War, they then opened it up and gave access to the commercial applications and said, well, here, we don't need this anymore. And boom.
Well, and they still got the benefit. They could still communicate
Right,
securely.
right,
But it's like there wasn't a need to keep it under lock and key, and they saw more benefits for the economy, for just technology in general.
So
we're seeing where that's come from.
when the wall came tumbling down, the world changed in more ways than one. All right, Larry.
Absolutely.
Larry Steinbach, First Rule Film and TV, R&D. Put your lab coat on and get back
Man.
down to the basement.
Yes, sir.
You
See
are
you guys.
good.
That robot is really freaky stuff.
Yeah, just imagine it running at you. in
By the way,
Afghanistan.
we should say the video, we'll put the video up on Facebook and Twitter and KTRS so you can see what we were laughing about if you were listening to us on the radio. 825.